Aloha, and thank you for joining us on another edition of A Better Day. I'm State Senator Sam Slom. I'm your Minority Senate Leader, and for the next half hour, we're going to have an interesting and hopefully an informative program, and I've got a very special guest today. But first, let me tell you that here we are. We've gone through half the legislative session. We have until May 2nd when we're scheduled to adjourn, and I always tell you, keep both hands on your wallet while we're in session because we've got tax increases that have been proposed, a lot of fee increases, a lot of additional costs and regulations. There have been a lot of bills that have been very controversial, and some people always ask, well, that bill is dead for the session, and what we always remind you is nothing is dead until we're out of there, till the last day, and we adjourn, sine die. And usually the Senate is smart enough, we're out there before the House. So anything can happen over in that House chamber with those wascally House of Representatives. But we've discussed all kinds of things so far this year. We've talked about gambling, we've talked about marijuana, we've talked about physician-assisted suicide. But the main issue for this legislative session, being an odd-numbered year, of course, is the operating budget. And we've got real questions and real issues. Everybody wants more money. They want to spend more money. Their program is the best. The governor came in with new initiatives in corrections and early education, things like that. But they all cost money, and the question is, where is the money going to come from? And basically, you can either cut spending, do without a program, or the T word, you can raise taxes. I'm going to talk to my guest about that today. Maybe there's another way of looking at this too. But these are serious issues, and your input is necessary and needed. And I know a lot of people say, my voice doesn't count, it's a done deal, you can't fight City Hall and all that. Well, that's only true if you don't participate, because then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now look, I can't guarantee you if you do get involved, you're going to either pass a bill or get a bill killed that you don't like. But I can guarantee you that it is important for you either to come down to the Capitol if you can, or listen, we've got all kinds of new technology right now. We've got a good website. You've got the ability to send in your text by email. We're even Skyping several of the hearings. So it's an opportunity to be fully involved. And most of the chairmen are very accommodating in terms of your testimony, in terms of letting you have your piece, and in listening to you, because lots of times original bills are amended. So it's important that you do that. Don't give up. And the reason we call this program A Better Day, remember Governor Abercrombie, his theme of his administration is a new day. Well, we think we deserve a better day, and we deserve more choices and more options for the taxpayers and the residents of Hawaii. I'm very optimistic and bullish about the future. It's the present that's a little difficult right now, locally and also nationally. Nationally with sequestration and budget deficits and all of these things that we have to deal with. And locally, my point remains, we have not turned the economic corner. We have not gotten better overall. Sure, the visitor industry is doing, it's doing very well. It had a record 2012 and is on to another record year this year, but we need more than the visitor industry. We need to diversify our economy, and we also, with the loss of Senator Inoue, have to find ways of making our business climate better. So that's on the agenda. As always, your thoughts, your suggestions, and your criticisms are always welcome, and you'll find our contact numbers. You can contact us right after the program. But now, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce our special guest on A Better Day. He's a colleague of mine. He's very experienced in government, and he's Senator Donovan Dela Cruz. Hey, Don.
Thank you.
Glad to see you.
Thank you.
This guy has had a very interesting background. He's a young guy. He's only 39. And when he was 28, that's when you ran for office the first time? The city council. You were the youngest chair of the city council, right, in our history?
At 30.
At 30. And then you came over to the Senate. And right now you are the chair of the important economic development, government operations, and housing committee. They put all that on you. And you're on what, 4 other committees besides that?
So agriculture, transportation, ways and means, and waterland.
Yeah. So we'll get into that in just a minute, but a little bit about your background. Local boy, born and raised in Wahiawa.
Went to Leilehua High School.
Leilehua Mules. Did you play any football or any sports? No.
I was in student government. I wrote for the paper, and I played. I even played tennis.
You played. Were you any good?
I tried my best.
Well, you had fun anyway,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you graduated from the University of Oregon,
In
and you had a
journalism.
degree in journalism and communications,
Yeah,
right?
so-
And you have experience. You work with some of the leading public relations firms here in
Yeah,
communications.
so when I came home from college, I worked at McNeil Wilson Communications for several years, and then I went
Uh-huh.
over to Stryker Weiner in Yokota.
Yeah. Do you miss that?
You know, it was exciting. It was I learned a lot. You know,
Mhm.
there's one thing as far as public relations or even just journalism that's important is to ask 5 questions: who, what, where, when, why,
The
and how.
basics, right? Still
And
the
a lot of
basics.
the ideas that we have here at the Ledge,
Mhm.
people know what they want, but we don't go to the rest. How we're going to do it, how much is it going to cost, who's involved, where do we start?
That's really important, isn't it? Because sometimes we have a bill and we'll be on second base without touching first. or
without
something
having
like that.
a complete thought.
Either the costs, which bugs me because there are costs for everything we do, or the unintended consequences.
So we're just going through that exercise of always asking 5 questions.
Yeah. So what got you to run for office, first of all, and the city council at that?
Well, when I was in public relations, my focus really was tourism. And I would always have to promote Hawaii as a destination. But we weren't really doing anything to improve the product per se.
Mhm.
And my town, Wahiawa, is definitely one of the towns that have brain drain. I mean, a lot of young people were leaving. They were moving to Mililani or moving away to the mainland. And, you know, it's either like put up or shut up.
And
so
without agriculture, you lost agriculture
no
too.
dole,
Yeah.
right?
So
So I ran for the neighborhood board. I got involved, and the more you get involved, the more you hopefully can see things that you could do. But you need to be in a position to make that difference. At least have the ability to start a real discussion that people are
Yeah.
going to take seriously,
yeah.
and push the envelope.
So you ran for city council. Were you elected your first time?
Yeah.
And then you became chairman of the council.
Yeah, you know, the whole process though along the way is everyone, you don't have a chance, you can't do it, you need money.
Yeah.
But I think as you opened up, you know, as you open the program up, if you really want to do it, if you want to get involved, go for it.
Mhm.
Get involved. Don't let people tell you you can't do this
That's
or you
good
can't do
advice.
that.
Yeah.
And you just got to go for it.
Mhm.
And you know, that's kind of what we did at the
But the city council, I mean, as dysfunctional as the legislature is, how did you deal with that? I mean, you never seem to have a resolution to an issue, at least here in the legislature. You know, maybe something comes by year after year after year, and we finally vote on it,
Yeah.
and it becomes law. But council, it seems like everything keeps coming back,
Except-
and you're year-round.
Except there's a flip side to that the appearance of it being dysfunctional also means that everything is transparent. There's no done deal, that there is going to be constant discussion, there's going to be bickering, there's going to be debate. I think if it was all so easy, so smooth, we probably should be a little worried.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that was part of the democratic process.
So you've been in the state senate how long now?
So this is my 3rd session.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's exciting to be here because of my experience at the city and how everything relates to the state and vice versa. I hope to bring a different perspective to add to the macro discussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, now last year, you were the chairman of the Water Land Committee, and you were a lightning rod for a number of pieces of legislation, not the least of which was the PLDC, those 4 letters, which both the House and the Senate voted to repeal this year.
Yeah.
The law passed in 2011,
Yeah.
right? A lot of controversy. And, you know, you and I, we've gone up against each other on the issues, on a number of things, but I've always respected the fact that you've stood your ground. You never backed away from explaining, you know, why you supported a certain position or whatever. Why don't you take a moment or two and explain what it was that you hope to accomplish with not only PLDC, but some of the other legislation which turned out to be controversial?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think many of us who run for office, we're willing to take on these controversial issues because we really are wanting to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not going to shy away to say, oh, this is an easy issue, so I'm only going to stick to those because you want to be popular or you don't want hate email or whatever the case may
Right.
be. But being Waterland Chair, we heard from the department, as you opened up as well, the departments were begging for money, always begging for money, dealing our short-staffed, our harbors, our parks, all of our facilities are really substandard. It's hard for us to say, oh, I'm so proud of Alawai Boat Harbor. Look how awesome it looks. So what we tried to do was come up with a way that DLNR could generate some revenue without increasing taxes.
Yeah.
And improve infrastructure, diversify the economy, and create some jobs. Unfortunately, the discussion unraveled to the point where people thought it was unlimited in its power, which wasn't true because it was a secondary agency, not a primary agency. But I think with that said, more and more people are starting to kind of get and wrap themselves around the idea of partnership. And there's other things that you have been really helpful with in our committee as vice chair, like the PPP Authority and DBED.
Oh, I think we got to stop and we got to say something. It was because of this guy here that for the first time in 21 years, there is a Republican that's holding a position of either chair or vice chair. In this case, vice chairmanship on the Economic Development Committee. And I'll tell you, as I've said publicly before, when I was approached to be the vice chair with Senator Dela Cruz, I said, I don't know how that's going to work, because he and I have been at loggerheads on issues, and you called me personally. We talked about it. You said, hey, we can have discussions all the time, but you pointed out that we actually are in agreement on many issues, probably the majority of issues. And I want to say, I mean, now that we're halfway through the legislature, you've been open, you've been transparent. We've had our discussions. I voted against you on a number of bills, but we've discussed that. And I think that's important, particularly in this time where there seems to be less civility. Maybe we can talk about that later. But get back to what you were saying.
Yeah, and so, I mean, what the committee, we really try to incorporate and address the concerns of all the members. I mean, you've seen our set recess where we try to build some consensus.
And it's a diverse committee, too.
And it's a very diverse committee. And so the ability to let go of these controversial issues so that we can move on and really address what we really need to address. I think, I want to also thank Senator Solomon, because in regards to the Public Land Development Corp, we're saying, okay, we don't have to be attached to that. Let's move on so we can really address some of these broader issues.
This has got to be one of the few times where people that were directly invested in that, and you and Senator Solomon, obviously, and the governor too, Governor Abercrombie, but you listen to the public, you listen to the testimony, and I remember you said something in one of the hearings that some of the things that the PLDC, after it was formed, that was not the original intent, and they did some things a little bit differently, which allowed for criticism. And you said, okay, let's find another way, and that's the approach you've taken.
Because it's the idea of how do we improve Hawaii. Maybe through public-private partnership, maybe streamlining government. The specific tactic that or the proposal in front of us may not be what we both agree on, but I think we can also agree on the end game. So if we agree with the outcome we're trying to achieve, we can work out the mechanics.
I think, and the devil's always in the details. Always. I mean, you can suggest a bill or suggest intent. Nobody can argue with your intent. With what you want to do, create more revenue, more sustainability, all of that. The question is how you do it. I know a number of organizations, including environmental organizations, were very concerned because it appeared that we were skipping the hearing process or the zoning process or something like that. And there have been instances in the past with different organizations. HCDA, for example. I can remember, this is really funny, you probably don't know this, but like 40 years ago, Governor Abercrombie and I were on the same side in opposition to the creation of an HCDA, because we were saying, now this is what could happen. And
spot zoning,
all of that. So you've got to walk a fine line. And, public-private partnerships has been around for half a dozen years, and it's a good buzzword, but it means different things to different people. And from my part, in the private sector, I certainly agree with your premise about speeding up the process, making it more efficient, but I want to see that in the private sector too, not just government, because oftentimes government, as you know, we pass laws and we exempt ourselves from those very laws, and I think that's what some of the public was getting upset about.
And you and I have had this discussion where instead of restructuring what we really need to restructure, the easy way legislatively in the past is let's just do an exemption, because it's too hard to restructure. May it be procurement, may it be land use. And at some point we're going to have to, as a body, say we got to do it. And we have to bite the bullet and and do the homework and take the effort to restructure.
Earlier this year, you introduced a bill, got a really good hearing, that would take away all the exemptions of all the different agencies, because people didn't realize they were talking about PLDC having exemptions. They didn't realize that most of the other agencies of government had that too.
Yeah.
So you introduced the bill to make a point, and every other agency came and testified against the bill, because basically they were saying our exemption is important, we're a priority, and all that stuff. But I think you did a good job in showing that, and people didn't realize it.
Yeah, you know, and that's part of our problem as government, is we're not really telling people about what we can do, what the agencies are doing, and how they really help improve Hawaii.
Yeah. So look, okay, PLDC aside, and some of these other programs, if you had your druthers, and for a day, you could make major changes, what would you do?
Well,
what would your priorities be?
Definitely try to make Hawaii, and specifically Honolulu as a city, the most globally competitive city and state possible. Really diversify the economy, reverse the brain drain, and have the most competitive environment so that we really can have jobs for our young people.
Well, see, look, that sounds good, but you know me, I've been a critic coming from the small business sector. We, in my humble opinion, and those that I talk to, we don't have a positive business climate now. We have things that we should do to make it more amenable for people that are in business to expand and hire people, to attract business. We lose an awful lot of investment, which you're very familiar with. We have capital overflying Hawaii from east and from west, which is really a shame because we have so many things going for us. But when people look at our tax structure, our regulatory environment, the many employer mandates, they say, we don't want to do business here. So, you know, when you're talking about making Hawaii and Honolulu particularly into a global market, which I think is possible.
Me too.
I don't think we're going in the right direction to do that. We're still taxing and spending and more government, more intervention. So how do you get around that without doing it?
And that's why part of that process has been to start introducing these more progressive or controversial issues, or tending out to be controversial issues, to kind of be more proactive. I mean, we have no strategy as to how we're going to get there. I think we all, going back to those 5 questions, I think the what we all agree on. How, who, when, where. We have to be a lot more proactive. Yeah. But we're just, you know, you mentioned this, a lot of things have just been business as usual, and we've just been reactive. And we somehow got to get out of that paradigm.
But Donovan, here's the problem I face too. We have hearings. We get business people to come down. They have to take time off from their work. And in fact, some of my colleagues say, well, if it's so important, why aren't there a lot of them here? Like the unions, when they load up a bus of 100 people and bring them into and they don't understand how difficult it is to own and manage a business, particularly in Honolulu or in Hawaii. And then they do come down, they testify, and they say, well, senators, this is what you've got to do in order to improve the business climate. This is what you've got to do in order to attract new business, to create jobs, to create more tax revenue. And then, by and large, what we say is, well, thank you very much. Oh, we'll do exactly what we've been doing for 20 years, tax, spend, more debt. So how do you get around that paradigm?
Well, and that's what I tried to do with the Public Land Development Corp, in trying to just change the paradigm as we know it.
But that's a government agency. How do you do it with, like I say, the things that directly affect those in business today? Can't you start, for example, instead of proposing new taxes, can't we start by reducing or eliminating taxes, eliminating regulations? And we don't do that. There's no bills this session that really is going to improve the business climate.
Well, and our committee really has been trying to figure out how we can provide the incentives to help certain industries. We had the R&D tax credits, which you and I have our concerns about with certain things.
Yep.
The film tax credits, and really looking at the film industry much more holistically in regards to just not the production, but the infrastructure, and getting workforce housing involved, and really start looking at these things a lot more holistically. Mm-hmm. What we really need to do is start getting the agencies to partner and not be so silo-oriented, leverage the resources they have and be a lot more efficient. But that's to achieve a vision that we don't seem to have right now. I mean, I think we're at a huge crossroads as to what is Hawaii going to look like.
Do you think that part of the reason that we don't have that vision is because we have so few people in the legislature that really have business experience or actually ever met a private payroll in their lives?
You know, it's not just that. I think we need a lot more diversity in government.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need a variety of people, but leadership has to say, we need to all come up with solutions. We just can't we have to stop attacking and focusing on things that are not going to impact the thousands of people that we represent. Mm-hmm. We have to change. And this is really too short a time to be going into, you know, how we're going to get there. I mean, you could probably do a whole year long.
Easily.
You know.
Easily.
But one thing I did find in what I've learned the last 2 years is you can't really have a macro idea without doing a pilot project. Because everyone will see there's unintended consequences. They'll see the pitfalls. So unless we can actually show people what we're talking about, such as a pilot project in an area, it's difficult because our worst fears seem to consume us.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it seems we've had some of the same ideas over and over again. And the ones that seem to be the more positive ones, we pass over. The other ones, we seem to try to find a way to finally get that legislation passed. And after it passes, there doesn't seem to be oversight, or there's no follow through on it. And so we don't know whether it was really worthwhile or not.
Yeah, and you know, the inertia of status quo really
hard to overcome.
Hard to overcome.
Yeah.
Hard to overcome.
And there's a lot of people that are really comfortable. They don't want change. I mean, we have a president who, you know, back in 2008, he ran on hope and change. And Hawaii, whether you look at us politically or socially or economically, we've changed probably the least of most areas. And I don't know how you overcome that.
But we can't. Well, we cannot give up. I mean,
no, certainly not. We're in agreement on that.
We cannot give up, and we have to keep trying to. Part of our effort really needs to be more inclusive and include people and inspire them to take risks, get involved. I mean, as you opened up with, I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that. How we're going to get more people involved.
One of the things, and our guest is State Senator Donovan Dela Cruz, and we're really happy that he's with us today. I mentioned about civility early on. Now, I've been in the Senate longer than you have, and I've noticed a change in government. Sometimes we're not really civil or respectful with each other, or even with the people that come in to testify or whatever, and so that's why a number of people have said they don't want to be here. It's not just the Senate or the House, it's the idea of government. We say we want input, but we don't really listen or value that input. I don't know how you get around that.
Yeah, you know, and that whole idea could be a reflection of what's really going on. I mean, there's lots of fear out there.
Yeah.
The next paycheck is questionable.
It's true.
And so it starts to permeate, I think, at all levels in society, and it's actually got into the Capitol.
I think that's a good point. You know, we've had it pretty good since statehood. In fact, we had it very good. And even when Linda Lingle was governor, she used to say, oh, it's not so bad. It's not as bad as the national figures and things like that. But, I mean, my point of view as a consulting economist is it's not as good as a lot of people are saying either.
Yeah.
And I pride myself on talking to a lot of different kinds of people every day. And they're telling me how they're struggling. And, you know, you go to the gas station, you go to the supermarket, it doesn't give you that discretionary income to allow you to do things that you'd like to do. And maybe that permeates down into our civility or lack thereof.
So I actually believe there is a tension.
Yeah.
And so it's going to really take this body to lead us to the point where there's a vision and that we're trying to achieve. Well,
you've talked so much. We're running out of time right now. What would be your final comments and final remarks?
That we can't give up. You know, we have to have hope. We have to have a vision, but we have to be reasonable and mature and dedicated to an outcome that's beneficial for all of us. We might not get everything we want, but does Hawaii have what it needs so that we can be competitive?
It's so frustrating because we have the people here. We have the ideas. We've demonstrated in the past goods and services that originated from here. We have the capability of doing that, but oftentimes because of government policies, taxation and all that, we've killed those industries, or we wind up exporting them. So that's the thing. Well, Senator Donovan Dela Cruz, I appreciate you taking time and explaining what you want to do. I think we all need to know we should be maximizing the resources that we have. We should be making government more efficient. And in terms of revenue sources, hey, look, it's a fact of life. The choices are, if we don't cut expenditures, people are going to be looking for new revenue sources, and that means, however you call it, revenue enhancement or whatever it means, taxes or additional charges. So if we can find revenue producing activities that are compatible with the environment, compatible with things that we're doing, and I think we can. I agree with you, and I've always been bullish on
Weinberg does that.
Yeah.
They're very shrewd with their assets so they can be generous with their programs.
And they multiply what they do. Well, that's what we have to do. So we're all in this together. We share that same long-term vision, and we want to know what you think. And if you have some comments or you have suggestions or whatever, and the Economic Development Committee is an important committee, particularly this year with all of the other things that we're involved in. So please come to our hearings or send a note to Senator Dela Cruz or send something to me. But the main thing is we urge you, don't give up. Get involved. Let us have the benefit of your thoughts, because that's the only way that Hawaii is going to prosper. And in fact, later on, we're going to have a better day. So I thank you all for joining us. We look forward to the next time when we're with you next month. And again, thank all of you for your attention. Aloha, and have a better day.